Welcome everyone. I'm Breanne O'Reilly from Carbon Management Canada. And just a reminder that today's event is going to be recorded, so please turn your microphones off. So before we get started, it's important that we acknowledge the land that we're gathering on today. Though we're coming together virtually, I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge that wherever you are in Canada, you are on the traditional lands of the Indigenous peoples known as Turtle Island. I'm personally addressing you from the traditional territories of the Siksika First Nation, the Kaana First Nation, the Piikani First Nation, the Tsuut'ina First Nation, the Stoney Nakoda First Nations, and the ancestral territory of the Siksikaate Sitapi, the Blackfoot Confederacy, and home of Métis Region number 3. To acknowledge the traditional lands that you are on, I would encourage you to add your locations and land acknowledgements in the chat. And if you don't know, I would encourage you to seek this out as part of your own personal journey towards reconciliation. So a little bit about Carbon Management Canada. We were founded in, sorry, if I can do the next slide. We were founded in 2009. Carbon Management Canada is the industrial solutions hub for greenhouse gas reduction. We provide experience, applied research, knowledge, and infrastructure to accelerate emissions reduction results. The push towards net zero is growing significantly, with industry and governments focusing on industrial decarbonization. As the world strives to reach our targets and address emissions, large-scale, meaningful solutions are needed, such as carbon capture, utilization, and storage. About a month ago, Carbon Management Canada sponsored the Carbon Capture Canada Conference in Edmonton, where over 3,000 people gathered to showcase Canada's innovation, technology, and opportunity for CCUS. We heard often that we need to be working collaboratively to advance solutions. You can do the next slide. CCUS is complex and can be a challenging solution to implement. There are technologies, services, facilities to support the capture, utilization, storage, transportation, as well as the conversion, monitoring, measurement, and verification of CO2. Today, we're formally launching 2 complementary nationally CCUS-focused initiatives to make it easier for solutions to get to scale. Go to the next one. The goals of today's event are to announce and thank carbonNEXT founding sponsors while updating you on our activities and impacts, to announce the Canadian CCUS Research and Technology Network and its members and share their expertise and capabilities with you. The first segment will focus on carbonNEXT, Canada's CCUS commercialization hub, developed in partnership with Foresight Canada. The second segment will focus on the Canadian CCUS Research and Technology Network, which connects innovators and industry with Canada's world-class CCUS technology commercialization infrastructure and expertise. Let me turn it over now to Jeanette Jackson, CEO of Foresight, to kick off the first portion of the event. Sponsors.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Great to be here. I see lots of new faces and familiar faces jumping on our program this morning. Shout out to Jason and Breanne for the great work in putting this together with the rest of the team. My name is Jeanette Jackson. I'm the CEO of Foresight Canada, and our mission is to work with partners to enable Canada to be the first G7 country to reach net zero. So we understand that that's ambitious. It's intended to be ambitious and really bring people together to collaborate like never before. And this carbonNEXT initiative is certainly one of those aspects where CCUS is going to be a fundamental factor in our ability to reach those targets. How we operate as an organization, it's really about rapidly launching, commercializing, and scaling technologies with the support of what we call the Helix 5, which include academia, government, industry, investors, and the innovation community, all also supported by broad community, including our Indigenous partners and other communities around the country. Next slide. A little bit about our programming. So we do run accelerator programming from ideation through to scale. Always happy to have conversations offline. A lot of this programming is embedded into the program we're announcing today. Also supporting industry with a series of different innovation challenges, and CCUS is coming up more than ever. Obviously, every sort of period or cycle, there's new technologies that come to play, but we certainly see a mainstay in CCUS as a priority for industry. And then through other programs around capital attraction, export development, and ecosystem building, we want to make sure that projects and ventures are well funded. We want to make sure that there are export opportunities once technologies are adopted here in Canada. And then from there, how do we continue to build the ecosystem? If you think about traditional cluster theory, if you can get a few hubs of excellence happening across the country, it's going to excite a whole bunch of new innovation around this technology scope and landscape, and it'll again continue to allow us to position Canada as a global leader. Next slide. Just a little bit about our impact. So we've had over $1.2 million invested in the ventures that we've supported. They're trending at about $3.48 million in revenue, 7,000 green jobs. And most importantly is the overall economic impact, which includes numbers of the dollars that have been invested in the 52 plus challenges that we've run, green jobs, and other factors around capital attraction. In terms, next slide, please. So we as an organization do define clean tech quite broadly. So anything that has sort of that environmental benefit, the reduction of resources used, the evaluation of supply chains and additive manufacturing to be more efficient, repurposing traditional waste streams, so things like biofuels and waste management, and then other innovations with definable environment or climate impact. And there's a lot of digital technologies that are coming into play there as well. Next slide. We have a series of next streams. The first next stream that we launched was WaterNext, and that is going incredibly well. It came from partners in Alberta that we've worked with to scale that program nationally. And then the next most important next stream that's reaching scale is carbonNEXT, in partner with CMC, Carbon Management Canada, and whatnot. But there's lots of different reasons why we're starting to segment a little bit more by sector. It's making sure that the right investors are at the table, the right industry partners, and that other areas of support that require more deep technical or business expertise are rounded out with our traditional programming. Next slide. And so here we are. You can skip to the next slide. Thank you. Okay, keep going. Okay, so here we are. The conversation today is all about carbonNEXT. And at the end of the day, this is an incredibly large global challenge. It's been estimated that we need to scale CCUS by 190 times to meet the needs by 2050. And what we also know is that a lot of the technologies that are required for us to do that either haven't been developed or effectively commercialized. And so the platform and conversations that we want to have today are about enabling those things to accelerate in both pace and quality. We will need to find a way to remove 51 billion tons of CO2 that's emitted annually. We're going, 2 to 10 billion tons annually to reach targets by 2050, but that 51 additional tons are into the atmosphere every year. And then, of course, there's a big investment opportunity. We need to make sure that Canada has the right tools and mechanisms to attract that capital. You're looking at about $1 trillion per year by 2050, and the buildup from there is in the billions. So let's be a country that has the platform to drive that capital to allow us to be the innovators, the commercializers, and the ones that help the rest of the world decarbonize. Next slide. And so we have already done some incredible work. It's been somewhat in silos, and now we're again trying to bring this together through the carbonNEXT initiative. But we have certainly, punched above our weight. We have 5 Canadian commercial scale CCUS projects operating under construction, 8% of Canada's share of global carbon utilization patent pool. So we're developing IP and protecting that IP using the right mechanisms and programs offered. We're already looking at 300 megatons per annum of incremental natural carbon sink capacity available across countries. So we are a very resource rich, as we all know, country. We also have some really interesting landscapes and natural abilities to reduce carbon from the atmosphere, in addition to the technology solutions. And 1 in 7 of all anthropogenic tons of CO2 sequestered globally has been in Canada. So, you know, when you think about the number of countries and the number of emitters around the world, we're certainly starting to get on the path to doing the right things. Next slide. Just a quote, this is not something that traditional industry is looking at. We're seeing a real influx of other technology providers in the finance space, in the digital space, in the web space, everywhere really bullish on CCUS. So a little quote from Shopify: as we explored the carbon removal space, built out a network and engaged the top researchers and academics, one thing became crystal clear: it would be very hard to spend our $5 million US budget this way because there's simply not enough commercially ready solutions. So they know it's important, and now we need to make sure we have a place for them to invest their dollars. Next. So carbonNEXT, it is, as Breanne mentioned, intended to accelerate the commercialization and scale up of carbon tech companies and positions Canada as a global leader in CCUS. And it's got these sort of 5 buckets of activity. The first is building a collaborative ecosystem, which we're going to learn more about today. Leveraging infrastructure. So there are different platforms to ideate and test some ideas that different researchers and entrepreneurs have for the space. We want to grow and scale these companies using different progressive and out-of-box models that we know work here in Canada, and we want to drive domestic and international adoption. Obviously, there's incredible opportunities with the diverse industry we have in our country to look at accelerating adoption in different verticals. And then we get into that positioning once those domestic adoption and scale up priorities have been met. You know, the world is going to look to us for these solutions. And next slide. And just to close off with our partner from Scotiabank, efforts to address climate change will require action from both the public and private sectors. Our partnership will support carbonNEXT as it works to accelerate commercialization and adoption of Canada's carbon tech solutions, positioning us as a leader. So without further ado, I believe I am passing it over to our esteemed partner and guest.
Hi, thanks so much. I assume that's me.
Yes, please. Thank you.
No problem. That's okay. I saw Kim's name and I thought, oh, maybe she's coming in, but I don't think she is. But thanks for the introduction. I'm Ariane Stren. I'm the Director of Climate Change at Scotiabank in the Global Sustainability Group. I'm very pleased to be here today to represent Scotiabank and our partnership with carbonNEXT. Scotiabank is a leading bank in the Americas, and in that capacity recognizes the very important role that we play in addressing climate change and supporting the overall transition to a low carbon economy across the footprint. I'm going to keep my comments brief today, but I just make a few points about Scotiabank's commitments and collaborations in this space. Last spring, Scotiabank published its first Net Zero Pathways report. This report can be found on our website. It outlines our commitment to the banks and our clients' journey with specific targets and pathways towards a net zero economy by 2050. This is, this has been already addressed, but is an extremely complex exercise for the bank, for our clients, for our communities, and for the economy in general. And at the same time, climate change requires really urgent action by organizations across all sectors, the public and the private sectors of our economy, and collaboration is really key. So in the spirit of that collaboration, Scotiabank allocated $25 million over 10 years to support nonprofit and research partnerships that will enable climate change mitigation and adaptation. And this is where carbonNEXT fits in. we're thrilled to support and partner with carbonNEXT and its work to accelerate the commercialization and adoption of Canada's carbon tech solutions. It's this kind of work that will help position Canada as a global leader in CCUS technology. According to the International Energy Agency, carbon capture, utilization, and storage is one of 4 key technology areas that are critical to achieving global climate and energy goals, and urgent steps are needed to significantly ramp up the deployment of this technology. They even went so far as to say that net zero goals are virtually impossible to meet without this technology. And as you know, the Canadian government recognizes this. They have invested significant funds over a period of 7 years into the research and development and the advancement of commercial viability for CCUS technology. So the good news is that, you know, it's clear significant actors in the public and the private sector advocating for the same outcomes, which are clean and inclusive economic growth, emissions reduction, and mitigation in what are the toughest to abate and critical sectors of our economy, new green trade opportunities, and ultimately a net zero future. We are really excited about carbonNEXT and what we think can be leveraged here. Your knowledge and your expertise is needed and is in fact invaluable. And we're looking forward to seeing how this level of and type of collaboration can advance our shared objectives on climate. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Ariane, on behalf of our partnership. And let me just say how important and also symbolic it is to have you know, one of Canada's leading financial institutions playing a key role on the decarbonization journey. And with that, let me welcome as well. We have some prepared remarks from the Honourable Daniel Vandal, Minister for Prairie Economic Development Canada, Canadian Northern Economic Development and Northern Affairs. So if you wouldn't mind just advancing to the next slide, and we'll queue up his prepared remarks.
Hello, Tanishi. Bonjour tout le monde. It's a pleasure to join you today. I'm excited about this initiative we're launching here today. It has tremendous potential to speed up the development of new technologies, help small businesses grow, create good jobs, and reduce emissions. Carbon capture, utilization, and storage technologies will help Canada to meet our net zero commitments and generate good jobs and more economic opportunities right here on the prairies. In order to gain the full potential of CCUS, we need to leverage the ingenuity, the leadership, and the innovation of Alberta's small and medium-sized businesses. That's why our government, through Prairies Can, is investing more than $1.5 million to help launch carbonNEXT. carbonNEXT will provide resources and facilities for small businesses to verify and to advance their technologies. This will become a pathway for innovators to test, to validate, and to commercialize their solutions. It will bring together industry partners, facilitate investments, and drive the development of new solutions to help sectors like agriculture and oil and gas to further cut their emissions. As Canada and the world continue to move to a cleaner and more sustainable economy, our government is supporting Canadian industries to be at the forefront of developing and adopting clean technologies, and CCUS is a key part of this commitment. Alberta, in particular, has all of the key elements to grow its clean tech sector, including its existing energy expertise, a talented workforce, and emerging capabilities in energy transition. Investment in projects like these will further support energy workers as we continue to develop cleaner energy technologies. I want to congratulate all of the partners involved in today's launch. They include Carbon Management Canada, Foresight, and others across the private sector. And I want to acknowledge the many innovators and entrepreneurs who are working tirelessly to commercialize their CCUS technologies. Our government will be here to support you on your journey to bring your ideas to market for the benefit of Canadians and people around the world. Together, we're growing the economy, we're fighting climate change, and making life more affordable for Canadians. Merci beaucoup, mes amis. Thank you.
And merci beaucoup, of course, to Prairies Canada, which was our key anchor support from the federal government and critical to the launch of this initiative. So I want to thank Minister Van Daal and his team at Prairies Canada for supporting our joint initiative. And thank you, Nisha, for taking us to the next slide. So with that, I'm Jason Switzer, Director of carbonNEXT. And let me open by thanking both Minister Van Daal and, of course, Ariane Stren from Scotiabank and your teams for your support of this initiative. As Jeanette outlined, carbonNEXT was established as a joint initiative by Foresight and Carbon Management Canada to accelerate the innovation ecosystem for carbon tech, and in particular for CCUS. It really feels great to bring it into public view today. So thank you all for joining us. And with that, next slide, please. Let's talk about the challenge that we're really trying to address here. Heavy industry, really the manufacturing sectors, which include making steel, cement, chemicals, fuels, fertilizers, other vital materials that society depends on, are responsible for about 1/3 of all emissions globally. Canada committed to cut these emissions by 45% from 2005 levels by 2030, or by roughly 4% a year during this decade. This will be really hard. About half of the emissions from this sector come from chemical processes which are used to manufacture these commodities. And these processes have taken decades to perfect and cost hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars to build. And then once built, last for decades on the landscape. And so it's going to require unprecedented hard technology innovation to disrupt and replace these. CCUS will do much of the heavy lifting, but of course we need innovation as well in GHG measurement, monitoring and transacting, in novel fuels and manufacturing processes, and mitigation of methane and other powerful climate forcers that these companies produce as part of their processes. And of course, linked to that, direct air and methane removal, and of course, ocean alkalinity enhancement are all areas of key focus for us. Next slide, please. carbonNEXT was set up to support these solutions and bring them to market more quickly. The world needs them, and Canada has much of the project experience, the policy frameworks and infrastructure to make them a reality. carbonNEXT was set up to help innovators with both the hardware, their technology, and the software, their commercial skills and connections. And we do this with training and mentorship through Foresight's proven clean tech-focused programs and network of experienced former executives, through engaging our startups with potential partners, industry customers, and investors, and through helping them navigate the world-class ecosystem of Canadian resources and other support. And a big part of this, of course, is also telling the story of Canada and our innovators and their strengths in this sector. Canada is already a global launchpad for CCUS and other carbon tech solutions from coast to coast, with the first generation of leading companies like CarbonCure, Svante, GHGSat, and Planetary Technologies, to name just a few. We have many of the top researchers in the field and much of the world's real project experience, as Jeanette outlined. With the work underway on policy and other support, we truly are positioned to lead. Next slide, please. carbonNEXT has truly ambitious goals backed by our generous supporting partners to contribute materially towards bending global emissions by 2030. Let me highlight just a few of these. Firstly, working with corporate partners to identify and run annual innovation challenges. These reach into the future and pull forward solutions that meet real market needs today while creating sales opportunities for the startups that we're working with. Mobilizing millions of dollars of capital for our startups. I'm pleased about a third of the way to that target. And thanks to our generous founding sponsors, Prairies Canada and Scotiabank, we do not need to take equity in our startups. We don't do so. We provide these services to them for free or at nominal cost. And here, I want to move to the next slide, if you wouldn't mind. I want to put the spotlight where it should be, which is on the innovators we are supporting. It takes tremendous courage. There are a lot of easier ways to make money than building a startup in carbon tech. Okius Net Zero Fuels and Chemicals Canada, Carbon lock technologies, and CO2 lock are just a few examples of the kinds of companies that we are supporting. Two came through our first sector-specific cohort, which ran last spring. And it was really a beta test for the training program that we are going to be relaunching in January. And they have since been engaging with the other support that we offer. Alberta's Ccos was at an early stage with just 2 employees, led by a former strategy lead from the oil patch. BC's CO2 lock is the result of years of focused work by individuals at FPX Mining in partnership with a leading university to transform their tailings into a high-value climate solution. Carbon Lock from Manitoba was recently named a semi-finalist in the $20 million National Food Waste Reduction Challenge. All three saw tremendous interest at our investor sessions with leading Southeast Asian companies and with members of the Clean Resource Innovation Network of oil and gas producers. Next slide, please. I think that really underscores a critical point. We really need industry partners at the table. Whatever your sector, CCUS and adjacent technologies like those I've described are vital for meeting your 2030 and 2050 targets. The available solutions are still in many cases too capital intensive, they're maladapted to your unique facility needs, or they've had too few deployments to meet your internal hurdle rate or risk screen. And as Microsoft and Shopify are demonstrating through example, all of us need to lean in to bring negative emission technologies like direct air capture forward. So please contact me directly to find out more about how you can get a seat at the table at carbonNEXT and how that can help you meet your corporate goals. Next slide, please. Here's some things to look out for this quarter. In particular, today marks the launch of our monthly Carbon Talk series on the second Wednesday of each month. And instead of me talking, you'll get to hear a number of really great presenters over the course of the remainder of the year. And shortly, we'll be releasing a first sector-specific report that concisely articulates the case for global investment in Canada's CCUS innovation ecosystem and how we need to work together to make it succeed. We will also be connecting our startups to investors and potential customers in mid-November as part of Foresight's quarterly demo day cycle. And finally, we look forward to launching our first innovation challenge with direction from industry partners and other advisors. Next slide, please. Let me close by reiterating some thoughts from Minister Van Dal's presentation, that CCUS can and will support not only our net zero challenge, but also leverage our strengths in Western Canada to create great jobs and opportunities. And with that, let me invite Jeanette and Breanne back, and we will now take questions on CMC, Foresight, and carbonNEXT before heading into the next segment of our agenda. Next slide, please. Thank you.
Thanks, Jason. That was great.
Terrific. Well, welcome back. And let me see if we've got any questions. Feel free to drop them in the chat. And similarly, if you have questions for us on carbonNEXT, I'll just say that I'll be hosting one of the breakouts in a few moments, but welcome to post questions for myself, Jeanette, or Breanne at this time.
Maybe I'll just jump in and make a quick,
Thank you. Why don't you go ahead and I'll respond to that in one moment. Go ahead, Jeanette.
No, I was just going to say, we're just so honored to partner with CMC on this initiative. You know, one of the fundamental beliefs that we see as an opportunity to improve programming in Canada is making sure that we're not only focused on the business side, but the technical side. Ventures, you know, more often struggle with the execution of product and technology roadmaps as opposed to, you know, coming up with the ideas. And so the opportunity to work with CMC and, you know, their incredible network of facilities, it's been a great fit so far. And we're just excited to see, you know, how this can grow from here. So.
Thank you, Jeanette. I see a question on the innovation challenge, and I can't unveil that here, but we're working behind the scenes to frame out a few different options and engaging with industry partners right now around what that challenge might look like. And so if you are interested in helping us shape that challenge, please reach out to me and we'll make sure that my contacts are in the chat as well. And another question, what are the profiles of partner startups that best fit carbonNEXT? The answer is, of course, you know, primarily CCUS, but adjacent technologies that can fundamentally support either fuel switching, direct air capture, carbon removal of different kinds, and of course, adjacent supporting technologies, which might include transaction platforms or carbon accounting systems that would have relevance for industrial decarbonization. So basically, if you're doing something innovative that's transformative and in particular addresses industrial sector emissions, then we want to hear from you. And if we can't support you, then we will help you find support through Foresight and through the Canadian CCUS Research and Technology Network, which you'll hear about shortly. A few more questions in the chat. What are plans for government procurement of low carbon products, if any? I think that's a bigger question, perhaps one for our carbon talk. And then on how the consortium is positioned to address the technology innovations necessary to bring the cost of capturing carbon down. I think on that, working together through things like an innovation challenge are great ways to help bring forward these technologies, and that in bringing these technologies forward, that's going to help address some of these cost challenges.
Can I comment on that, Jason,
yeah,
quickly?
Please.
Yeah, I think it's important. I think, these questions are exactly in line with what carbonNEXT is working to do, because what it's done is it's given industry from so many different sectors the ability to come to a place and look at what technologies are available so that we can do more of that matchmaking. And ideally, when there's a right hit and adoption occurs, then that technology can be accelerated in its deployment, and through that process we can get to reducing costs. But I don't want to use the term consolidating demand, because as Jason mentioned, at this point there's still quite a few nuances and specifics around how the technology is deployed with different industry partners. But ideally, in the next 2 to 3 years, as we look at understanding how industry wants to play, what problems that they're specifically trying to solve, how they're operating, where the different technologies could fit, and where similar technologies can be leveraged across different industries, we hope to see more economies of scale. So that's certainly top of mind for all of us as we work through this process.
And one other thing to add to that is that it also allows us to see where the gaps are. So we can identify where we need to be investing in different technologies because they don't exist yet.
Thank you, Breanne. And I see we're at time, so I'll respond in the chat to some of the questions that have been posted, but I'd encourage you to stay for the presentation of the Canadian CCUS Research and Technology Network. And of course, I'll be hosting one of the breakouts if you have additional questions that we don't address in parallel. So with that, let me hand the agenda over to Breanne from Carbon Management Canada to introduce the next segment of our discussion this morning. Over to you, Breanne.
So next slide, please. So as we were chatting, we are industrial decarbonization. CCUS can account for 9% of the global emission reductions by 2050, according to the IEA. And as Jeanette and Jason have described, Canada is a world leader in the development of CCUS technologies. This is in part because our country is home to several world-class testing facilities and expertise-based organizations for CCUS technology development and commercialization, including CMC's own facilities. In spite of these amazing facilities and organizations, finding the right one to advance a technology quickly and efficiently can be a challenge for industry and smaller enterprises, including startups, and the cost to access this expertise can be challenging to budget for. Next slide, please. The Canadian CCUS Research and Technology Network is being launched today to provide innovators and industry with efficient, coordinated, and collaborative access to Canada's world-class CCUS technology commercialization infrastructure and expertise. Carbon Management Canada acts as the concierge to connect innovators, end users, industry, and funders to organizations providing expertise with facilities and equipment to help demonstrate, scale, and validate technologies. Network members share expertise, capacity, testing and demonstration services, technologies, research and development, and funding opportunities with each other to accelerate the commercialization of solutions. And as the network concierge, we will review your needs with you to help match you with the appropriate support, and will communicate the members' capabilities to global domestic solutions developers. So if you're in need of CCUS expertise, equipment, or facility, there is an intake form on our website. And I'm hoping that Astrid, you can drop the link, or Jason, you can drop the link in the chat where people can fill out that form. And our network members, as listed here, include Innotech Alberta, NRCan CanMet Energy Devon, NRCan CanMet Energy Ottawa, the National Research Council, and of course, Carbon Management Canada. Each organization is going to provide an overview of the services that they provide, but before I pass it over to Bonnie at Innotech Alberta, are there any general questions about the network or how you would go accessing that concierge service? I see Astrid and Jason both just posted the link to the website, so hopefully that makes sense to everyone. If there aren't general questions, I will pass it over. Any groups providing legal or insurance expertise? No, the expertise from the network is focused on the CCUS facilities and expertise for advancing technologies. Will we also focus on direct air capture? I mean, I think down the road at this point, there's none of the testing facilities that have a direct air capture unit that I'm aware of, unless anybody has a secret one that they haven't shared yet. We are looking to connect with IRAP to get some of that startup access funding to be able to access the facilities for sure. Is the purpose for scale up of early stage. So I think that each facility has their own targets in terms of what level of technologies they can support. So that might be a good time to transition into passing it over to Bonnie to talk about Innotech Alberta.
Thank you, Breanne. Hello, everyone. It is a pleasure to be here today. You guys can hear me okay, Breanne? Yeah, awesome. All right, so I'm Bonnie Drozdowski. I'm the Director for Environmental Services at Innotech Alberta. Can you go to the next slide, please? Before I get into the facilities that Innotech supports and are available for others to be able to access, I thought I'd give you a quick insight into what Innotech Alberta is. So Innotech Alberta is a research and technology organization that is a wholly owned subsidiary of Alberta Innovates. What that means is that we're an arm's length government-owned organization that has been set up by the province to support industry and government to address some of their challenges that they're facing in a variety of different sectors. So our organization dates way back to the Alberta Research Council, which was established in the early 20s. So it's got a lot of history within the province, supporting various different energy transitions. And so it's very exciting to be a part of this energy transition today. Our mandates as a government-owned organization are twofold. One is to partner and work directly with industry to be able to address their challenges. And the other is to be able to serve as a convener and a connector within the innovation ecosystem. So that means that we're, as an arm's length government organization, we have an element of neutrality that provides some additional level of confidence in the information that's being provided. And so from that perspective, what we're doing today with this network is very much aligned with both of the mandates that we have. Next slide, please. So what we're doing in the CCUS space is really twofold. We are focused at a lower TRL, so TRL roughly 3 to 6 in the R&D space for carbon capture, utilization, and decarbonization. What we're doing in that area is supported by a lab in the Calgary Research Park, and I'll give you more insights into that. But our focus in that area is really to decrease the cost of carbon capture, as well as to identify and de-risk technologies for decarbonization that are low carbon and low cost. So really just trying to drive down the cost and find the optimal solutions for implementation and adoption here in Alberta. The other area that we're concentrating is for technology demonstration and scale up. at our Alberta Carbon Conversion Technology Center, and that's at a TRL level of 6 to 9. So at a higher TRL level, meant to really demonstrate the technologies and de-risk them prior to implementation at an actual operational facility. We really fit in the middle between private industry and government and technology developers in both of these scales of facilities to be able to support and de-risk the technologies to be able to accelerate implementation by industry. Next slide, please. So our high temperature processing lab was set up initially to support decarbonization work that's being done. However, with the launch of the Hydrogen Center for Excellence in Alberta, it's also being expanded to be able to support hydrogen production technologies, which are intimately associated with the success of conversion and utilization technologies as well. So the facility is located in Calgary at the Calgary Research Park. It's a lab scale, so TRL 3 to 6, supporting clean hydrogen production, decarbonization, and conversion technologies. And really what we've established there are several high temperature heat delivery mechanisms. And what we're trying to do is optimize technologies by evaluating different input mechanisms and ensure that we can provide the lowest cost, lowest carbon solution for any given conversion or production technology. So a few examples of things that can be evaluated at this scale are some projects that we've been working on for dry methane reforming, pyrolysis, conversion to different fuels using novel catalysts. So this is really available with technical support to be able to optimize technologies for energy input and conversion and decarbonization. Next slide, please. Now, moving over to our ACCTC facility, which is located next to the Shepherd Energy Center, also in Calgary. This facility is a demonstration scale facility that has been set up, or was set up actually, to support the NRG COSIA X Prize competition in 2019 and 20. And that competition had technology developers demonstrating their utilization technologies. However, during the course of the competition, it was identified that most of the technologies required concentrated CO2 to be able to de-risk at this scale. And so a capture system was also established at the facility. So there is a opportunity to be able to evaluate carbon capture, utilization and conversion, as well as decarbonization and hydrogen production technologies. Next slide, please. So the ACCTC is adjacent to the Shepherd Energy Center, which is a natural gas-fired power generation facility. That means that it has very low concentrations of CO2. So with respect to the other capture systems that have been evaluated globally, there are very few that have been tested at the scale for very low 3 to 4% CO2 concentrations. So this novel amine-based system has been set up to be able to provide concentrated CO2 to all of the 5 bays that exist at the ACCTC, as well as just flue gas directly from a slipstream off of the Shepherd Center. And so that's at a 4 to 6% CO2 all the way up to a 99% CO2 range. So the ability to be able to test and validate at a range of concentrations is available at the facility. And of course, the rest of the utilities are also available to be able to hook into for demonstration and de-risking. And the whole purpose here is to be able to demonstrate and de-risk so that the next stage of adoption is right at an operational site without having to actually interrupt operations. Next slide, please. And then lastly, is our capture system. Because it was set up from the R&D perspective, it's now available for novel R&D. So whether you want to be able to evaluate intensification of the amine process to increase optimization, or to be able to evaluate novel solvents within the system to evaluate if that's going to decrease or increase optimization, decrease costs. The facility is now available to be able to do that from an industry and an R&D perspective. We have verified through ISO for this capture system, so we have a fantastic baseline to be able to make those comparisons with. So that's it for InnoTech for now. I'd be happy to answer more questions when we go into the breakout rooms.
And next up, we will have Eddy from NRCan CanMet Energy Ottawa.
Thank you very much. Do you hear me okay?
Do.
Great. My name is Eddy Chui, Director of Carbon Management Technology Group at CanMet Energy Ottawa. Next slide, please. If you don't know who we are, CanMet Energy Ottawa is a Canadian federal government laboratory within the Department of Natural Resources Canada. As our name implies, we're located in the suburbs of Ottawa. Our mission is to lead the development of energy, science, and technology solutions for the environmental and economic benefit of Canadians. Next slide, please. In essence, we're an R&D organization, very active in the innovation process. Today, I'd like to introduce to you one of our key specialties within the laboratory. Generally, we'd like to take promising energy technology ideas, typically developed in the bench scale by our own scientists or our collaborators, external collaborators, and we can take these ideas and transform them into first-of-a-kind or one-of-a-kind, fairly large pilot scale facilities. As you see in this picture, it can be like 2-3 stories high. Typically, these are units where we can perform high temperature, high pressure chemical reactions, and where we can collect controlled data, typically needed for technology providers before they contemplate pre-commercial or full-scale application of these promising technologies. So while we're on the experimental campaign, we're well supported by our modeling capability to optimize the experimental matrix. And also once the models are validated, they can also be used with our partners to visualize what these technology may look like in prototype or full industrial scale. So that's one of our key expertise within the laboratory. Next slide, please. When it comes to CCUS R&D, we've been working on this subject since 1994. Over the years, we have developed experience in all 3 pathways of carbon capture: post-combustion, pre-combustion, and oxy-combustion. Our latest work is on high pressure, high temperature oxy-combustion systems. We've also developed multiple facilities that can generate up to 3 tons of CO2 per day for carbon capture analysis. As for utilization and conversion, we're working on conversion to fuels, and chemicals, and ambient or high pressure. We're also working on direct carbon fuel cells. We also have a dedicated team to look at permanent storage of CO2 in geological formations. With specialized lab and modeling support, we look at reservoir analysis, characterizations, injectivity, and wellbore analysis. And recently, our group has also started looking into CO2 pipelines, direct air capture, and carbon mineralizations. And all these works are being supported by very advanced modeling capability, like computational fluid dynamic modeling, process modeling, techno-economic analysis, life cycle analysis, and we have a full in-house chemical analytical lab to support our experimental work. Overall, we have about 70 technical staff in 6 teams working on various aspects of the CCUS systems. And I think that we are well equipped to study and scale up CCUS technologies. So if you are interested in our capabilities and you think that we can be helpful in using our capabilities for your development of CCUS technologies, or for you to evaluate, select, or customize the CCUS systems for your industrial applications, please feel free to contact us, and you can find our contact information in the network website. Thank you very much for your attention. And I'll pass it to the next speaker.
Yeah. So next up, we have Nicholas from NRCan CanMet Energy Devon.
So we got it. Okay, so I'm Nicholas Setting, a research scientist at CanMet Energy in Devon. So I'm going to provide a bit of an overview of the type of CCUS related research and work we conduct. So next slide, please. So just kind of as we just had our sister lab, CanMet Ottawa, discussed. So CanMet Energy in Devon, we are located in Devon. So located just outside Edmonton, with about a total of about 100 scientists, engineers, and technologists. Our kind of research focuses, kind of the kind of middle there, we have the overall CanMed energy focuses is fossil fuels, oil sands, heavy oil processing, energy efficiency, industrial processes, clean energy, or clean electricity, bioenergy, and renewables. But for Devon, so kind of we're talking about GHG emissions reductions, but we also work on bitumen and heavy oil upgrading and processing, tight oil and gas, tailings treatment, water management, and oil spill science. Next slide, please. So more specifically related to CCUS, so we have kind of 21 research scientists with multiple disciplines working in kind of related projects, 4 research engineers, 6 physical chemists. On the capture side of research, some novel materials testing, so carbon fiber and other organics. On the utilization and conversion side of things, synthetic fuels, electrochemistry, carbon additives, hydrogen production and storage. And then storage, so monitoring geological CO2 storage, and then also lab and business support. So bench to pilot scale facilities, material characterization, numerical simulations, and then life cycle analysis. So next slide, please. Now we have two research groups. So one of them is Upstream and Environment. So that's the team I'm in. We do materials characterization. So you see at the top, in the middle left, our SEM, and then some optical microscopy equipment below that. We also conduct flue gas CO2 capture research. And then also research into simulating emissions from tailings ponds. So in that photo, we just see them, tailings ponds, and then some special sensors for measuring the production of different gases. And then also research into geological CO2 storage. So measuring and monitoring for migration of gases using different methods, especially focus on noble gases. And there is also one of our pieces of equipment, mass spectrometer, that's field portable, so we can kind of take that out to monitoring gases at specific sites. So we'll go to the next slide. And then the other research group is Downstream and Renewables. So their work focuses on novel approaches to CO2 capture and separation. So one area of work is hydrate-based CO2 capture. So studying CO2 capture by hydrate formation, then release by reversing the conditions. CO2 capture and separation with activated bitumen coke. So preparing activated carbon from bitumen coke. And then also CO2 capture and separation for air using asphaltenes. So exploring the use of low value bitumen asphaltenes, the potential CO2 capture materials. So these are all kind of focused on using different hydrocarbon derivatives for capture. So we'll just go to the last slide. So then just finally contact information. So James Bridie is the Director of Upstream and Environment. And then Jinwin Chen is the Director of Downstream and Renewables. So yeah, that's everything I have. Thank you.
Next up, we have Martin from the National Research Council.
Excellent. Thanks, Breanne. And actually, good afternoon and bon après-midi tout le monde. Martin Tyrawskyj, I'm the Acting Director for the Materials for Clean Fuels Challenge Program. And also with me is Dr. Parisa Karimi. She's the Scientific Research Pillar Lead for CCUS within the Materials for Clean Fuels Challenge Program. Next slide. Please. I will try to go from broader to more narrow and how the NRC is structured, especially the Energy, Mining and Environment Research Center, which is the one that's hosting the Materials for Clean Fuels Challenge Program. We're about 240 research engineers and experts located across 5 research centers, 5 facilities in Canada. It's missing Mississauga on this slide. We're looking at supporting and advancing technologies specifically on the clean energy sector and also in the mining sector, again, to go tackle sustainability challenges. And we work, depending on the program, we work on different technology and readiness levels, from fundamental research, could be all the way up to field testing. But I would say for CCUS specifically, we go for low to mid TRL 1 to 6 is I think where we can make the biggest difference. Next slide. In terms of capabilities of facilities, there's 5 facilities under energy, mining, and environment, 1 in Richmond, Vancouver. We have 2 in Ontario, 1 in Mississauga, which is the Advanced Materials Research Facility. We have the Ottawa facility, 1 in Royal Mount, Montreal, and 1 in Boucherville, Montreal. In terms of capabilities, multiple capabilities, material characterization, optimization. We're looking at clean energy conversion technologies as well as sensing technologies, mainly for the mining sector. Multi-scale modeling and simulation is getting more and more important and more critical, and as it is not only necessary to go make these new discoveries, but we need to accelerate the rate at which we are making these discoveries. System integrations and clean processing as well. I will be focusing mainly on 3 facilities since we have a limited amount of time. But something that's important is to leverage for the NRC is to support industry. We try to leverage capabilities that we developed in other fields and try to use them for areas which are critical, such as CCUS. So we can go to the next slide, please. The first facility I wanted to mention is our Vancouver facility, which is it's our the main purpose of our Vancouver facility is our hydrogen lab. However, we apply the technologies, the membrane technologies, the electrode technologies that we developed for fuel cells and for electrolyzers. We apply them for CCUS type applications. This research center also has very strong multi-scale modeling capabilities, which have been used for the past 3 years for the MCF, Material for Clean Fuels Challenge Program, as well as some gas-safe labs that can be applied for other technologies. Next slide, please. The second facility I wanted to mention is our Ottawa facility. This facility has over time developed very strong capabilities in terms of battery performance and evaluation. So again, leveraging whatever we learned in the battery front and applying to CCUS, as well as very strong microscopy and material characterization and analysis capabilities, which we developed over time. Biomass gasification and renewable fuel combustion testing as well are some of the capabilities of the Ottawa facility. Next slide, please. Our brand new facility located in Mississauga, Ontario is the Advanced Materials Research Facility. It will be a 3-floor facility. At the moment, we completed the first floor. This facility has two main labs. Actually, there's 3 labs, but I think specific to CCUS, we have the wet dry chemistry lab and the characterization laboratory as well. This facility will have a strong focus on material acceleration platforms, which are the combination of robotics, artificial intelligence, machine learning, characterization, and material synthesis. Again, as I mentioned before, the objective is to make the discoveries, but also make them faster. We also have mass spectrometry systems, laser-induced breakdown spectrometry microscopes. Again, as you can see in the list, I'm not going to walk through all the specific pieces of equipment, but we do have some very cutting-edge, brand new equipment that we introduced into this facility through our collaboration with the University of Toronto. And I also wanted to mention in the Vancouver facility, we have a collaboration center as well with the University of British Columbia. So we love collaborating with as many people as we can to push these technologies as far and as quick as possible. Next slide, please. I think I have to skip one more. Just for the attendees to understand how the NRC works, our objectives are driven by programs. So there's 2 related to CCUS within energy, mining, and environment. There's 2 programs that are actually driving the projects for CCUS. One, I'm the acting director for the Materials for Clean Fuels Challenge program, which is a 7-year collaborative research program. And then we're looking for low, high risk, high reward technologies, TRL 1 to 4, mainly for this one, specifically looking at next generation materials for CO2 conversion. So catalysts, membranes, that's a key focus for the Materials for Clean Fuels Challenge program. We also have hydrogen and other pillars, but specifically to the network, this program is really looking at early on technologies that can really help us make the next step for CCUS systems. Next slide, please. And the way we are structured as well is there's a continuation between programs. So we have the Advanced Clean Energy Program, which is as well as 7-year strategic research program, but it's more for mid to high TRL applications. Again, this program has a clean fuels research pillar as well included in its mandate. So again, we initiate our projects through the Material for Clean Fuel Challenge program, and then we evolve them through the Advanced Clean Energy program. And again, looking forward, I'm really excited about being part of the network, and I'm really excited to see the amount of questions that we're getting. This is a fantastic opportunity, and look forward to hearing in the breakout rooms.
Okay, next up we have Greg Maidment from Carbon Management Canada.
Morning, everybody. I'm Greg Maidment, Director of Operations. Oh, I froze there. Can everybody hear me? Awesome. Okay, sorry. Greg Maidment, Director of Operations and Applied Research at Carbon Management Canada. I'm going to talk about the Newell County facility where we're doing applied CO2 injection underground. Next slide, please. It's a good little shot of Marie, one of our researchers at the facility, and our CO2 tank back behind with our cooling tower where we're actually injecting CO2 underground. So this is a pilot scale project that we're collaborating with academia, government, and industry. Really is focused on what the actual solutions are. So we're talking about TRLs 5+, 6+ really. And how do we implement them at scale? So we're injecting CO2 underground at 300 meters. To our knowledge, that's the only location in the world that's doing shallow storage. We're at that 300 meter depth. Everything else in Canada must be deeper than 1 kilometer. So we wanted to understand what it would look like if we had an actual leak from a deeper target. How do we image what the CO2 looks like as it's leaking up into the shallower targets? Also, we need to understand what CO2 storage looks like at those shallower depths, because it just makes much more sense from an economic point of view, especially up in and around the oil sands. So we wanted to use this space to understand how to build out different monitoring technologies, how to support different monitoring technologies to make sure that we're ready to hit the ground running when projects are up and at scale, ready to go. So there's continuous, as stated here, geophysical, geochemical, as well as satellite monitoring and a variety of different types of monitoring to understand how the CO2 plume is actually moving in the subsurface. What are the different technologies that makes the most sense to image it, how to image it. So we're using the actual injection as a test bed to support known technologies and use those known technologies to then again support extra new technologies in monitoring, such as passive monitoring, so we can see how CO2 moves without extra energy sources, without extra interrogation of the subsurface, and see if we can do this much more economically. So this facility is accessible to basically anybody to come and test those technologies. You jump to the next slide, please. Using the integrated data set that we have on site. So as I said, we've got one injection well. The next, actually, why don't you jump to the next picture so I can, or next slide, so I can talk about the picture there. Here's a good shot of our facility. Right in the middle there is the injection well, but we've got 2 observation wells there as well as 5 kilometers of fiber optics laying throughout on the surface and down all 3 wells. Geophones are down one of our geophysics well. The geochemistry well is open, and to our knowledge, again, the only well that's been completed this way. It's all open sand packs so that we can take take gas samples from a variety of different depths. So we want to be able to take any innovative new ideas on how to inject more effectively, cheaper, faster. As Nick pointed out, working with noble gases as tracers, he had a good little picture of the facility there where he was testing the soil sampling. And building from the ground up. So we've got the all the subsurface monitoring, as well as the soil monitoring, the water monitoring, and what other technologies can we bring in. So companies that come to work on innovation in this space get access to all the data that's already existed. We've been injecting CO2 underground here since 2016, 2017, where we first got started. The wells were drilled in 2015. So that's 7 or 8 years of injection data, as well as all the subsurface data around it. To this point, it's really been driven by industry. We have quite a few industry partners that help direct what our applied research is, and then build on any extra innovators that want to understand this space. You want to jump to the next slide? Yeah, there we go. Did we have another picture with all of our different supporters on there? I can't remember if I added it on.
There's one more.
One more. Yeah, there we go. So it's, as I mentioned, it's been driven by, in part, public sponsorship, academic sponsorship. U of C and the CIFREF, the Global Research Initiative, have supported us, as well as our JIP, Joint Industry Partnerships, partners that are on here, so that it's really been industry driven. And happy to have any conversations or questions about the project in the breakout rooms. Thanks.
And so last but not least is James from the BC Research Institute.
Hi, so my name is James Lockhart, and I'm here to introduce you to BC Research, which hosts the Carbon Capture and Conversion Institute, or CCCI, which is Carbon Management Canada's division in British Columbia. Next slide, please. So BC Research is part of a private group of companies under common ownership, which work closely together to provide a vertically integrated platform to take new technologies from conception and bench scale testing through piloting and scale up all the way through to full-scale commercial demonstration. At BC Research, we specialize in the early stage R&D, including the design, fabrication, and operation of pilot plants and modular systems, while NORAM Engineering specializes in the design and supply of proprietary commercial plants and systems for a variety of industries in locations around the world. And lastly, Axton, our ASME-rated code fabrication shop, can build full-scale commercial pressure vessels, heat exchangers, reactors, and other custom equipment in a variety of materials ranging from carbon steels and stainless steels, high nickel alloys, duplexes, all the way up to titanium, zirconium, and tantalum. Together, we have nearly 300 engineers, scientists, designers, and technicians. And one advantage of this integration is that we're really focused on the commercial end game right from the start. So we don't just make bigger what's been done previously, but we first work hard to conceptualize the future commercial plant or system and identify the key capital and operating cost drivers and types of equipment that would be appropriate at that scale. We then go back and plan the piloting and development to use methods representative of the planned future full-scale plant and equipment, and focus on the highest priority questions in order to reduce the cost and de-risk the future commercial scale plant. Next slide, please. So BC Research, which is located in the Vancouver area, we have about 35,000 square feet of pilot plant and assembly area, as well as an extensive wet lab and in-house analytical capabilities. I don't have time to go through all of them there, but all of that equipment is there to support the R&D going on at our facility. We also have all the skilled personnel and utilities required to design, fabricate, and operate both large and small scale pilot plants and demonstrations, including a megawatt of electricity and steam, cooling water, chilled water, compressed air, and other gases, etc. Slide, please. So as part of our collaboration with CMC, we also have some specialized infrastructure to support some relatively large scale carbon capture and utilization relevant projects, including a system that can produce up to a ton a day of CO2 in flue gas with real impurities from our natural gas-fired boiler combustion system. But we also have the ability to dose in different impurities, including SOx and NOx, to simulate other types of combustion, higher temperature combustion, or sulfur species combustion. We also have some specialized analytical equipment for flue gas analysis and other things relevant to this type of testing. The system's operational and has already been used by some clients who are testing their systems. And in these cases, we can bring in and test existing prototypes, or we can also help clients develop and build new ones for testing. So we can also assist or execute techno-economic assessments, as well as the planning of test campaigns and the collection and incorporation of data generated from these test campaigns into improved commercial plant designs and cost models. Next slide, please. Oh, sorry, that's the end. That's the end. I thought there might be just something else. So yeah, that's a brief introduction to BC Research and the Carbon Capture and Conversion Institute, and happy to get into more details of our capabilities and experience in their development.
So now we will open up the breakout rooms. We invite you to join the relevant one listed there to get more information about the specific facilities or about carbonNEXT as a whole. If you can join the individual ones, I know Astrid is assigning all of our speakers to their proper rooms. If you look at the bottom of your screen, there's a join a breakout room button there, and you'll be able to select the facility that you would like to join. I'm sure that we were all having very interesting discussions. Today has been a fantastic opportunity to see how much continued collaboration is needed in this space to make sure that solutions are coming forward and that the right minds are meeting together. There's information here about where you can find more details about the network, about carbonNEXT, about how to stay informed about the carbonNEXT newsletter. And there will be a follow-up survey sent out to you. We'd ask that you please respond and let us know what you would like to see in the future and how you found today's session. And please don't hesitate to reach out to any of us for more information. And we look forward to doing more events like this in the future. Thank you very much. Jason, did I miss anything?
That was terrific. So remember, second Wednesday, same time, same place, and hopefully the same people. And I promise that next month's session will be just as rich with information and insight as this one. So we look forward to having you back.
Thank you so much.